The world of entertainment is often dazzling, filled with spotlights, flashing cameras, and carefully scripted smiles. But behind all the glamour, there are rare stories that seem to shimmer with something more, something deeply human, fragile, and real. This is the story that shook the hearts of millions. The night Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo chose to seal their love under a sky filled with stars, in a wedding so private yet so breathtaking that it feels more like a dream whispered to the moon. It began quietly. No one expected it. No media leaks. No paparazzi shadows. Just the faint hum of a midnight breeze and the silver glow of lanterns swaying in the dark. Somewhere on the outskirts of Hangzhou, by the lake where the mist curls like silk, two souls met again after years of walking different paths, Xiao Zhan in his quiet strength and Wang Yibo with his untamed fire. The world thought they had drifted apart, that the bond they once shared during the Untamed had become nothing more than a memory. But that night, all the silence, all the distance, melted away. The ceremony was held in a garden bathed in moonlight. The air was scented with jasmine and rain, soft, clean, and almost nostalgic. Candles lined the path to a small open pavilion where white curtains fluttered like wings. There was no orchestra, no crowd, no grand announcement. Just two people, a handful of close friends, and the sound of water gently lapping against the stone edge of the lake. Xiao Zhan arrived first, dressed in a simple black suit with a silver pin shaped like a lotus, his favorite flower. He stood there, quietly looking at the stars. He had that calm composure that fans adored. But his eyes, that night, carried something more, a quiet storm of anticipation. Then came Wang Yibo. He wore white, pure and graceful, like the night's reflection on the water. When he stepped into the pavilion, Xiao Zhan turned, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. It was as if time itself bowed in reverence. The silence was sacred. Then, as if drawn by an invisible thread, they walked toward each other. Wang Yibo smiled that rare, unguarded smile, the one that seemed to light up everything it touched. Xiao Zhan's lips curved too, softly, like a promise. When their hands met, it was not just a touch, it was a spark, an unspoken vow of everything they had endured and everything they still hoped to be. Their wedding wasn't marked by gold or grandeur. Instead, it was filled with small, meaningful gestures. A ring, crafted from intertwined silver vines, rested on a white silk pillow. Xiao Zhan slipped it onto Yibo's finger first, his hands slightly trembling. "You've always been the brave one," he whispered. Yibo chuckled softly, his voice breaking the hush of the night. "And you've always been the reason I want to be." There was a simple officiant, an elderly man from the local temple who didn't recognize their fame, only the depth of their eyes. He spoke ancient words about love, patience, and destiny. The two listened, fingers still entwined, eyes locked like they were tracing the constellations written only for them. When the vows came, Xiao Zhan's voice was soft but certain. "I've walked through silence, storms, and shadows," he began. "But every time, your name has been the light that found me. I promise to stand beside you, not as the world expects us to be, but as we truly are." Wang Yibo's vow was quieter, almost a whisper, but it trembled with truth. "You taught me that love doesn't need permission. It just needs courage. So here I am, not as the idol they see, but as the man who chooses you again and again." When they kissed, the candles flickered as if the wind itself bowed in blessing. The lake shimmered with the reflection of the stars, and somewhere in the distance, a single firework bloomed, silent but radiant. The night deepened, and music began to play, not from speakers, but from a lone violinist hidden among the trees. The melody was slow, tender, haunting. Wang Yibo took Xiao Zhan's hand again and pulled him gently into a dance. They moved together in quiet rhythm, steps small, smiles soft. The world felt suspended, no noise, no fame, no fear, just the simple poetry of two people in love. After the dance, they sat by the water's edge. Xiao Zhan leaned his head on Yibo's shoulder. The moonlight washed over them, turning everything to silver. "Do you think they'll ever know?" Xiao Zhan asked, his voice low. Yibo smiled faintly. Maybe one day. But tonight, this moment is ours. There was something profoundly human in that. Two souls who had faced endless rumors, public scrutiny, and the unforgiving spotlight, yet still found a corner of the world where love could simply be. Their wedding was not a rebellion, not a statement, but a quiet act of truth. It wasn't about proving anything. It was about feeling everything. Later that night, as they lit floating lanterns and watched them drift across the lake, the sky turned into a tapestry of light. Each lantern carried a wish, a promise. One of them, a small red one, carried Yibo's handwriting. For every lifetime, I'll find you again. Another, in Xiao Zhan's careful script, said, for every storm, you'll be my calm. When the final lantern rose into the heavens, they stood together, fingers intertwined, hearts beating in unison. And though the world slept, the stars bore witness to a love story that no camera could ever truly capture. By dawn, the garden was empty. Only the scent of jasmine lingered. The candles had burned down to wax, the lanterns had faded into the lightening sky, and the lake lay still again, as if keeping their secret safe. In the days that followed, fans noticed subtle things, the matching rings during interviews, the way they looked at each other from across crowded rooms, a shared laughter that felt more like home. And though neither confirmed nor denied anything, their silence spoke volumes. Sometimes, love doesn't need validation. It doesn't need a stage. It just needs a night, a promise, and two hearts brave enough to choose it. Their night wedding became a whispered legend among those who believed in destiny, a story not about fame, but about finding peace in a world that often misunderstands love. For Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo, that night wasn't about the world seeing them. It was about them finally seeing each other, clearly, completely, and forever. And maybe, somewhere out there, beneath the same moon that watched over them, someone else will find the courage to love just as fearlessly. The night was far from over. After Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo exchanged their heartfelt vows by the shimmering lake, something changed in the air, as if the world itself paused to honor their union. The faint hum of cicadas blended with the soft ripple of the water, and the stars above seemed to burn brighter, mirroring the spark that now lived between them. The moon hung high, casting its silver light across their faces. Yibo's white suit caught the glow, giving him an almost celestial presence. Xiao Zhan looked at him for a long moment, as though memorizing every detail. The curve of his lips, the calm strength in his eyes, the way the night breeze teased at his hair. You know, Xiao Zhan whispered, a smile tugging at his mouth. You look like a dream I don't want to wake up from. Yibo chuckled softly, lowering his gaze. Then don't wake up, he murmured. The officiant, a quiet old man with eyes full of wisdom, had already left, leaving them in complete privacy. The garden around them felt alive. Fireflies glimmered between the flowers, and the lake reflected their image like a perfect painting. It wasn't a wedding for the world. It was a promise written in moonlight and silence. They moved toward the small table beside the pavilion where a simple wedding cake waited. Nothing extravagant, just white frosting, 2 sugar lotus flowers on top, and the faint aroma of vanilla. Xiao Zhan lifted the knife, and their hands brushed as Yibo reached to help. That single touch sent a rush through both of them, a silent electricity that needed no words. Ready? Xiao Zhan asked. Always, Yibo answered, eyes locked on his. As they cut the cake together, their laughter broke through the quiet, genuine, and light. For a moment, it was as if they were just two ordinary people celebrating love, far from fame, far from noise. Yibo took a small piece of cake and held it up. Open your mouth, he teased. Xiao Zhan smirked but obeyed, letting Yibo feed him the bite. When he returned the gesture, he deliberately smeared a little icing on Yibo's cheek. Oops, he said with mock innocence. Yibo's eyes gleamed. You're going to regret that. In an instant, he dipped his finger in the frosting and brushed it across Xiao Zhan's nose. Their laughter filled the air again, a rare, unguarded sound that echoed through the garden. They were stars, yes, but tonight they were just two hearts finding joy in the simplest of things. After the playful moment, They both fell silent again, standing close. Xiao Zhan reached up, gently wiping the icing from Yibo's face with his thumb, then resting his hand on Yibo's cheek. His voice dropped to a whisper. You have no idea how long I've waited for this moment. Yibo leaned into the touch. Every day, I wished for it too. And now that it's here, he paused, eyes shining, I don't ever want it to end. The night deepened, and the stars seemed to lean closer. They walked hand in hand toward the dock, where a small boat waited, its surface sprinkled with rose petals and tiny lanterns glowing faintly like captive stars. Without saying a word, they stepped inside. As Yibo rowed gently out into the lake, the reflection of the moon rippled beneath them. The sound of water brushing against the wood became a lullaby. Xiao Zhan rested his head against Yibo's shoulder, closing his eyes for a moment, feeling the rhythm of Yibo's heartbeat under his eye. Do you remember the first time we met? Yibo asked suddenly. How could I forget? Xiao Zhan said, smiling faintly. You were quiet, but your eyes said everything. And you, Yibo replied softly, were the only one who made me feel seen. The lanterns around them flickered in the breeze, and for a long moment, there was nothing but peace, the kind of peace that only comes when you are exactly where you're meant to be. When they reached the middle of the lake, Yibo stopped rowing. The world felt completely still. Xiao Zhan reached for a small box tucked under the seat. Inside were 2 delicate glass bottles, each containing a tiny scroll. A wish, he said, handing one to Yibo. They wrote silently, then sealed the bottles and let them drift into the water. As the bottles floated away, Yibo whispered, What did you write? Xiao Zhan smiled mysteriously. If I tell you, it might not come true. Then let me guess, Yibo said playfully. You wished for a lifetime of peace. Xiao Zhan shook his head gently. No, I wished for courage, so that no matter what comes, we'll never have to hide who we are again. Yibo reached for his hand under the moonlight, fingers tightening around his. Then I'll wish for the same, he said quietly. For a while, they simply sat there, 2 silhouettes against the vast silver night, hearts beating in perfect rhythm. Then, as the first hint of dawn began to touch the horizon, Yibo stood and helped Xiao Zhan out of the boat. Back on shore, they walked barefoot along the damp grass. Xiao Zhan laughed softly as dew clung to his feet. You know, I never imagined our wedding would be this quiet, he said. Yibo smiled, looking at him with a tenderness that words couldn't capture. Quiet doesn't mean empty. It just means it's ours. They stopped near a willow tree, the branches trailing like veils in the cool morning air. Yibo turned to him and said, Let's remember this, not as something forbidden or hidden, but as the beginning of our forever. Xiao Zhan nodded, eyes glistening. Forever, he repeated, and the word hung between them like a vow renewed. Then, without hesitation, Yibo pulled him close, and under that ancient willow, they shared another kiss, deeper, slower, filled with every unspoken word, every promise made in silence. The world was waking, the first light creeping through the trees. But for them, time had stopped. It was the dawn after their night of truth, a dawn that marked not an ending, but a new beginning. When they finally walked back toward the villa, hand in hand, Xiao Zhan glanced back at the lake one last time. It feels like the stars are still watching, he murmured. Yibo smiled. Then let them. They're the only witnesses we'll ever need. And as the sunlight broke through the horizon, spilling gold over the water, it felt as though heaven itself was celebrating their love, quiet, eternal, and beautifully real. Sparkle's dear viewers, if this story made your heart flutter, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps these stories alive and helps love, in all its forms, shine brighter for the world to see.